Today we are interviewing Lucas, who is a very talented guitarist and a god of internet memes. And right now we are waiting for him to connect. In a minute, he's gonna be 1 minute late. That's it. 1 minute. He's 1 minute late to the interview. In about 30 seconds, he's gonna be 2 minutes late to the interview. That is just massive disrespect. Light race. Lucas! I'm gonna drink water while waiting for Lucas. I'll have to start by introducing you.
Okay.
Is there a way you would like to be introduced?
Not really. I mean, tell me what you were thinking about and I'll tell you if I think it sucks.
Okay. Hey everyone, this is Lucas. He plays guitar and he's French.
Yep.
Have you been interviewed before?
Kind of, I guess. Yeah, I have.
I haven't been an interviewer before.
Okay.
So I didn't know how to come up with questions. So I went to the most reliable resource possible you can go to come up with questions. I went to Tinder.
Okay.
I started messaging girls, telling them to imagine they play guitars. And they just released an EP. And some random dude is recording an interview with them. And they should tell me what questions they would like to hear.
Sick.
So, right now you are going to be interviewed by
random Tinder people.
Polish women from Tinder.
Okay, fine.
Okay, so Maya is asking you, how do you craft your image?
What does she mean by image?
I think she meant looks.
Okay, I don't know. I try to roll with what I think looks good, I guess. I mean, I do take some time to learn about filmmaking and video making and trying to make things look good on camera. So that's a thing, and I'm trying to stay a little objective about it. But on the image of what I show of myself, yeah, it's just I just try to stay very natural on what I think looks good or not.
Magda is asking you, how would you describe your life?
It's on the starting blocks. I don't feel like I have, kicked in a career yet. I still feel like I'm trying to start something. I don't know how long it will last, but that's how I feel right now.
But you are both working hard in music and in production, right?
Yeah.
How did you get into music production?
I've always kind of wanted to, have recordings that sound good. I've always been interested in recording music because I'm rather on the introverted side, I think, and I'm not the kind of guy who goes out all the time to jam and do gigs and stuff. I was always kind of, home alone trying to make some nice sounds with my piano, and I ended up very naturally recording things so I could stack up different instruments together, and I always wanted to tweak the settings to make them sound good. So from a very early stage, it was already kind of audio production.
Does it annoy you? Because for me, the most fun part is writing music. Then when I start mixing it, it's like exciting for the first hour. And then when you spend a day listening to a snare drum, I just wanna run away.
Yeah, how I get it. It gets better when the more you know what you're doing, it gets better. So I guess at the start, it's a lot of frustration. You still will get frustration all the time over your career, but when you start out, it's especially frustrating if there's moments where you don't know what you're doing and you're trying to get a sound and you don't know how to nail it. But the better you get at production, the better your ear becomes, it's kind of the same as with harmony and just relative pitch, and working on your ear is a thing you do in production as well. Just the more albums you mix, the better your ear becomes, and the better you get at identifying problems and being able to solve them quickly. So also when you get good at production, you don't only get good at making a good sound for an album, you also get better at doing it quickly, because you know what's wrong and you just correct it and then you're done, and you don't have to listen to the snare for 12 hours,
Mm-hmm.
you just make it good and then you move on. And I'm always really excited about production, and usually it's the opposite for me, because I spend the beginning of the production stages kind of bored, because you have some technical tasks to do, and it's kind of unmusical at the nerdy stage. But it's always by the end that I find it really exciting, because you start to feel that the song, is being brought to life, and you start feeling it, and you start living it as a song and as music. And that's always my favorite part. When I start to feel that it really starts sounding like a song, like a finished song, it's always really, really exciting.
What would you say is the most important mindset or approach when it comes to mixing and mastering?
That would be balance. And by that, I mean everything is always a compromise. I feel like, you can't make the highs super loud, thinking it makes everything, like more of something, because it's always less of something. Because depending on how loud you listen to it, more highs always means less lows. So it's actually literally the same thing. If you turn down all the lows, it works the same way. So anytime you do something in mixing or mastering, it takes something off somewhere else. So everything is a compromise, and you should look for having a good balance of everything that you want in your mix.
Eva is asking you, how did you feel when you were recording your EP?
Inspired, I guess. I mean, I first started writing the songs a little before, like about 3 years ago, I think. And yeah, there was some kind of break, and then last year I started, picking the 4 songs that I think would be cool for an EP. And so I started finishing the writing as I was recording and starting to mix, kind of all at the same time. Just, so it was kind of exciting, because this thing that I was talking right before of like the song feeling that it's coming to life through the mix, I was starting to feel it as I was writing it still. So it's like enhanced songwriting, which is why I really, really like to start producing a little when I'm writing, because I don't like to have like a Guitar Pro or a MIDI file or something that sounds lifeless, and to have to imagine what it will sound like when it will be real instruments and real production and stuff. I don't want to have to imagine for myself, and I really like to get the sound as close as possible. So usually these days, if I'm writing something, I start recording some notes, and as I'm doing it, I already have some plugins going on, and even maybe a small mastering chain, just to get it already as close as possible to what a finished song would sound like. So yeah, I felt really excited finishing the writing of these songs, because I was better at production than I was when I started writing them. So it was easier to get them to be exciting because they were already starting to be produced.
How many years it took you to record those 4 songs?
About 3 or 4, I guess. It's not like I spent 4 years of my life on the computer, 12 hours a day looking at the songs, trying to make them perfect. It's just I've done other things in the meantime, so I've been kind of on and off for all these years about them.
Yeah, I totally get it. When I was recording my last album, it also had 4 songs and took like 3 years. and lately I've been thinking it's not productive at all.
Yeah.
Like, I thought, how much of my life do I have left, and how many more albums I'm going to release? And
Yeah.
I'm trying to switch up my approach to just pump out more.
I feel that. Yeah, I feel like perfectionism is like the biggest enemy, because you would always think as a producer or as a musician that you're like 90% there and you have to reach the 100%. But you know, for almost literally everyone that's going to hear the record, you were already at 100%, and the fact you go beyond that or not doesn't matter to anyone. So you kind of always have to strive for those 90% and then roll on with the next thing before you're really bored and burned out with it.
Do you feel like if you're working on multiple songs at the same time, then whenever you have to go back to a previous song and finish it, you're less motivated to do it than you were when you were starting it?
Yeah, I guess I did have a lot of this thing of like starting to write a song and not really knowing where it's going and not knowing what to do next. So just moving on and starting writing another song, and it starts feeling exciting now. So yeah, that happens quite a bunch. I guess I have a lot of unfinished projects because of that in my PC. So I just picked the 4 for this EP that I thought would be the best one to rework and make into a complete song. The ones that I would be inspired to make a complete song with.
Ola is asking, what is the strangest place where inspiration hit you?
That's a tough one. I don't really know. I guess his inspiration strikes more in stranger places, because it's often the trick that I pull out when someone asks about, you know, what to do when you're in the rut, when you're not inspired for writing music. I feel like I would be inspired if I'm in a new place with a new instrument or with some limitation that I didn't have before, and I have to work out with what I have. And it always sparks new things that you wouldn't have thought about if you were home with your whole studio and all your gear and stuff, where the possibilities are endless, but then you don't know what to choose. So I've probably written some great things in, you know, broken pianos in airports, or like a guitar with 5-string in a holiday house or something, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Okay. For me, what I often find, I was very inspired after failed dates.
Yeah.
Like I would leave a failed date like humming something.
Yeah.
To you know, to deal with embarrassment. This one I was laughing really hard when I got it. How did you come up with the name of the band?
Oh wait, my band?
Yeah, your band.
But you only told about my solo project, right?
Actually, I didn't tell them, so they didn't know it was a solo project. That's why it was very funny.
Yeah,
for me.
I mean, if it's my own name, then I didn't come up with it. You'll have to ask my parents. But yeah, I do have all the bands, but not sure what it was referring to. So
to make it more serious, you could respond with the names of your other 2 bands.
All right, so Archetype is a tough one. I'll try to find a better way to explain it in the future, but it's a thing we came up with the drummer, because we write a lot together. I mean, it was kind of my idea at first, but it's a way to refer to an idea that we're trying to reach with music, or that we'll be trying to reach with music. I'm talking about Archetype. I don't know if I mentioned it at all.
Yeah, you did.
Okay, so yeah, it's the idea of reaching music that is, you know, a perfect example of what it's supposed to describe, because it's supposed to be rather descriptive music in general. And the first album that we wrote and recorded, I mean, it's not finished recording the full production, but it'll be out. The first one is more open to interpretation, but it's still supposed to describe rather precise events, I guess. But what we're planning for the second album is a concept album with a very, very precise storyline and characters, and just very things that we're supposed to describe exactly with the music. We just don't like when the music is like, if it feels off compared to what the story is supposed to tell. I'm really I feel it's really awkward when someone tells me, oh, this song is so sad, because they're listening to the lyrics, and yeah, the lyrics are sad, but like the song behind is happy. So I'm like, I'm not sad when I listen to this. So I care a lot about that. And the idea for Archetype, especially in the future, is to get to, in our opinions, in our subjective experience of music, make the music that describes best what's going on with the story and the lyrics. So that's where the idea of the archetype of what fear would be musically, or like what joy would be musically, or what any kind of specific feeling in a specific situation in a concept, the archetype of those situations musically transcribed, what would it be? And then Delsey Hill is a bit simpler. It comes from this UFO story from Barney and Betty Hill, I believe, were two American people who were supposedly abducted by aliens. And I think it's the most famous story about that, because it's really they've been interviewing both separately for months and months, and they never, it always how do you say that in English? It always matched what they were saying. They always said the same things together about what happened in the alien abduction. So it's kind of famous for this. And they had a dog that was called Delsey. So Delsey Hill is the dog of the couple that was abducted by aliens. And it seems really random and doesn't seem to make a lot of sense for the first record, but it will actually take all of its sense in the second, because just like with Archetype, the second album would be a concept one. And in the case of Delsey Hill, Delsey will be kind of a main character for the second album, actually.
Sounds like you put a lot of thought into it.
Yeah. The Archetype was more me, and Delsey Hill was more Gabe.
What would you say is your biggest focus out of those three projects?
It should be Archetype. Right now, obviously, I was rather focused with my own project because I had to release the EP and stuff. But Archetype feels like my biggest project, I guess. It's the one that no one's really heard about yet because it's been in preparation for way too long. As I was talking about perfectionism earlier, Archetype is even older, per se, than the songs that I released with the EP. We started forming the band and writing some tunes in 2013, so 7 years ago, and the first album is still not out, but it's being recorded. A lot of it is recorded, actually. All the guitars and all the bass and all the drums now are done, actually, so most of the synths are done as well, so there's mostly just the vocals that need to be done, and then the production, and then we'll be able to release it. I don't know when Susie will be able to come record it. It's been delayed even more with the lockdown situation, but yeah, I feel like it's probably also taking some time because of the pressure, because I want it to be my best project, So it was cool to release an EP of just solo things that don't really implicate anyone, and I just do it by myself, and it's rather easy to do, and I kind of hope it will build some hype around my music so I can also promote Archetype even more. And then Delsey Hill is kind of a bit more of a side thing. But I mean, just like my solo EP it was kind of a side thing if I think of Archetype, which I feel is my bigger thing. So yeah.
So you are the main songwriter in Archetype, right?
Yeah, especially for the first record, I wrote most of it, and then we switched drummers. And the new drummer, which is my best friend actually now, is is a songwriter and a really good one. And we had worked together to finish the first record together, and he's probably gonna write even more for the second, I guess. But yeah, it always starts with my ideas, I guess.
For me, it always was a question of how do you merge two writers together, because I was always writing by myself and feeling very, very protective about my ideas. So how do you feel about letting somebody change what you have come up with? Aren't you afraid that it's going to go in the direction you didn't want it to go?
Yeah, and that does happen, and yeah, I'm quite petty about it, I guess. I'm not I like to really have a clear idea of where I want to go, and if someone tries to, make it deviate to somewhere else, I'm usually upset about it, I guess. But it's still worth it in general, because it goes both ways, and I've happened to not be inspired for something or not know what to do. As I was saying, I have billions of unfinished projects in my computer, but I know if Marswin, the drummer and other songwriter from Archetype, if he came and just looked at my unfinished projects and heard the songs, he would be like, oh, I know what to do with this one. I could totally finish it with this kind of thing. And I would usually agree, like, that's a cool idea that I didn't have. So it's been helpful with Archetype as well, that he's brought more ideas and more good ideas on how to make things work better. Sometimes, I will accept still that someone has great ideas, of course. So it does help a lot. But usually it's still more like someone writing as the main composer. There's always some kind of like more of someone, unless the structure is rather intricate in the song, which has happened with Archetype as well. So yeah, if you can have a part that was written by one member and then the next part has been written by the other, and etc. But in those cases, sometimes it's hard to make the structure work well together and not feel like it's suddenly deviating a bit too much. But yeah, it works really well if it's one main composer and then someone gravitating around to fill in the blanks and give the ideas on what doesn't really work or what's empty for now.
You're saying that Archetype is like 7 years in the making, right?
Yeah.
How did you go about assembling the band and finding the right people?
Okay, it was really, really easy actually, because we're all from the same school, which is pretty nuts. But locally, there's one high school that's really notable for having a music thing. I don't know, how would you call it? A music course, I guess. And it's kind of the only school in the entire region, basically, that has it. So, the good musical talents, I guess, of the whole department or region would come to that school. So there was a lot of really, really good musicians in that school. And there's actually one year where, I don't remember who, maybe it was me, but for the end of the year concert, I suggested In the Name of God by Dream Theater. And so, we reunited with the, more technical musicians of the school. And I mean, I was already really, really good friends with the bassist. So, yeah, we had a singer that was kind of a friend as well, Susie. And so we played at the end of the year, the school concert, with like Arthur, who's still playing bass with Archetype, and Susie, who's still singing for Archetype, and another drummer, and also the teacher who was playing keyboards, and so we really loved playing together. It really worked out well. So afterwards we were like, oh, we need to make songs and keep playing together. It was already a thing before we even decided to make a band, so it was really, really easy on that. And then it happened that it was too hard, too complicated to work with the drummer, so we got Marswin in. which was a really, really good decision. And for a moment, I was like, oh, we need a keyboardist because, you know, we weren't gonna take the teacher in the band, of course. But yeah, I ended up thinking, actually, we don't really need it. Like, we can have everything in the backing tracks, and I really like the alchemy we have together as a 4-piece band. So having everything in the tracks also makes for a tighter, more solid sound overall on stage, even though we're still playing for real. But the really digitally synths in the background can help make it feel even tighter. Whereas if it was one keyboardist dealing with the patches, it would be even more risk of sounding a bit, you know, sloppy, because that's a thing that's really hard when you use fairly digital tones, is that we're all used to organic instruments sounding a bit off, especially guitars. If you're playing guitar and it's a bit noisy and it's not perfectly in tune, it's fine. We're so used to that sound through rock music. But if you're using electronic percussions, you know, if you're trying to be tight but it's not perfectly tight, you would immediately notice it, because we're also used to electronic music being programmed, so being so tight on pitch, that if an electronic sound isn't on pitch, not on pitch, I meant on time, sorry, but if it's not on time, it will be very, very shocking suddenly. So keyboardist sometimes is the the hardest place to fill in, I guess, if the parts are a bit rhythmic.
You know, I think that whenever I was at a live show, I didn't really notice what the keyboardist was playing.
Yeah, it's hard to tell these days what they're playing or not. Except if it's a solo, of course, but yeah.